it. Having broken through the gate, she looked inside, her eyes widening in shock. It was a massive group of soldiers, armed and ready behind the gate. The leader of the soldiers had a ferocious expression. He looked at them and roared. "The master has ordered, anyone who dares to enter, kill without mercy." Then, like a swarm of ants, the soldiers charged out. Facing their overwhelming numbers, Trantuet observed, feeling a touch of worry. She thought to herself. "So many people," the leader yelled. "Prepare to die." But before he could approach, he suddenly felt his body become strange. He froze, his entire body seeming to turn to ice. He thought to himself, "I can't move." What's happening?" Ling Tian suddenly appeared from behind. He looked at the soldiers, his face full of anger as he said in a harsh voice, "You little shrimps, dare you block my path?" Immediately, half of the soldiers in front suddenly knelt down, kowtowing before the two of them, to the utter bewilderment of those behind them. Those at the back, seeing their comrades acting like this, became extremely angry and shouted, "What are you doing up front? If you're scared of death, just get out of here. You may not want promotion and riches, but I do. Get out." In contrast to the soldiers' chaos, Ling Tian's expression remained calm. He reached behind him, ready to step forward. "Let's go." Trantuet replied, "Yes, sir." Ling Tian took a few steps, when a few more from the back suddenly knelt down. One soldier holding a sword standing at the rear couldn't help but ask, "Hey, why are you?" But when Ling Tian took another step towards them, he too knelt down. He went ahead to lead the way, while Trantuet followed behind. Wherever he went, the soldiers all knelt down. Trantuet looked at the people kneeling around her with an expression of surprise. At the same time, she couldn't help but think to herself, "Just his presence makes everyone terrified to death? No wonder he's called master." From within, the sound of drums began to resonate. As soon as she heard it, her eyes filled with worry, and she exclaimed, "The drums! Could it be they've begun the execution?" The scene shifts to the execution site. A line of girls were tied with ropes around their necks, forced to kneel on the ground. Behind each of them stood a strong young man, holding a broadsword in his hand, waiting for the order to execute. A girl with scars on her face cried uncontrollably, "Hulu, I don't want to die." The girl with blue eyes looked at her friend who was crying beside her and declared, "Don't cry, Master Trantuet will definitely come to save us." Hearing the two girls' conversation, the leader who was observing them suddenly laughed out loud. Ha! He was Veen Long, the new head of the Ulam sect. Looking towards the group, he held the death warrant in his hand. He scoffed. "To depend on others to save you when your own life is at stake." Then, he threw the warrant before them, proclaiming, "You pathetic weaklings, die!" The warrant flew high, towards the group preparing to face their death sentences. A few seconds later, it rapidly descended towards the ground. But before it could touch the ground, a force stopped it from falling, leaving it suspended in midair. Soon after, the warrant shattered into many pieces. The leaves fell to the ground, skimming past the approaching footsteps of Lang Tian. Both of them simultaneously stepped forward, standing in the middle of the execution ground. Upon seeing Trantuet's arrival, the girl with blue eyes exclaimed with joy, "It's Senior Sister! I knew you wouldn't abandon us!" The other girl beside her wept with happiness. "Senior Sister, ho ho ho." Veen Long, seated high above, greeted them upon their arrival, welcoming the esteemed seniors. He then introduced himself. "I am Veen Long, the new leader of the Blue Cloud sect. I am honored to welcome Senior Lang." From below, Lang Tian used his heaven's eye to observe and analyze. He silently thought, "Late-stage martial king, much stronger than me, no wonder he acts so arrogant and overbearing." Veen Long, in turn, looked down at them, his brows furrowed in assessment. From their Dantian breaths, he saw they were only at the martial general level. A huge difference in strength, killing Lai Vantian with one move, taking down Cat Long Tuen with a glance. All just fabricated rumors. He scoffed internally, full of disdain and contempt. Yuan Long looked at him with an expression that conveyed a lot of meaning, secretly thinking that if he just killed him, he would definitely be taken seriously by the sect master. He thought this way in his heart, but he still tried to appear polite on the surface. He stood high up, looking down at them with an arrogant demeanor, and asked, "Senior Lang, I wonder what business brings you to my Ulam path today? If it's about Cat Long Twin, our sect master happens to have prepared a gift to show our sincerity. Bring him up here." Seeing this, Ling Tian remained calm and didn't react. Instead, he turned to the side and instructed her. "Trantuet, go and untie the sisters." Trantuet responded obediently. "Yes, master." He stood high above, witnessing Ling Tian's every action, seeing him ignore him, causing his hand to clench into a fist, his whole body trembling with anger. He gritted his teeth, his expression extremely ugly, thinking to himself, Dare to ignore me? This damned bastard." Unable to control his anger any longer, Yuan Long raised his hand and shouted furiously, "Who dares to touch them? Kill them on the spot." At his words, Trantuet, who was walking, turned her head and looked at him with an astonished expression. In the shadows, a soldier raised his bow, ready to shoot. Ling Tian glanced. Across the way, a soldier had drawn his bow. The soldiers, following Vien Long's words, were in a ready position, just awaiting his command to attack. Once again, Vien Long threw the token onto the ground. He landed it right before Ling Tian's feet. His expression turned cold, and without another word, he commanded in a gruff voice, "Execute." The men with swords behind the prisoners began to swing their blades, preparing to strike. As the edge of the sword was about to touch the short-haired girl's neck, Ling Tian, who had been silent, suddenly spoke, commanding, "Kneel down." Immediately, the group of young men who were about to execute dropped their swords to the ground. Then, all of them knelt down, forced by an invisible power. Ling Tian didn't look back, but continued to order a slap. The young men holding the swords immediately obeyed without hesitation. The soldiers with their crossbows pointed at him were taken aback by the scene. They asked in unison, What is happening?" Seeing this, Vien Long couldn't help but feel fear. He secretly thought, is it just with his presence that he can achieve this? No. Han is not just a martial arts general. He must be using some kind of magic or magical artifact. In an instant, his expression returned to normal. Vien Long pointed towards them and ordered the soldiers with crossbows and the generals, "Don't be afraid. Fire on them, make them into a honeycomb." Suddenly, from above, a familiar voice boomed. "Anyone who dares touch a single hair on my master's head will be killed without mercy." Yuan Long looked up at the sky, thinking to himself. That's. A few seconds later, recognizing Truck Hung Tu's identity, he exclaimed, "The sword demon Langren, Truck Hung Tu." His expression was filled with rage. Yuan Long pointed at Truck Hung Tu and roared, "Don't be afraid, charge." As the soldiers rushed forward, he offered a reward. "The one who takes Ling Tian's head will be rewarded with 1,000 gold. Upon hearing this, the soldiers, their faces contorted with fury, charged forward. They roared in unison, "Kill him!" From above, Zhu Ling Tian swiftly descended. He raised his sword, shielding Ling Tian and Tran Tuet. He looked at the soldiers, his eyes becoming sharp, and asked, "Master, can your disciple handle these trash alone?" "I'll take care of them." Ling Tian, unconcerned, replied, "As you please." He began to lift his foot off the ground. Truck Hung Tu drew his sword before him and began to unleash his power. Behind him, countless swords appeared and formed a circle. Truck Hung Tu looked down at the soldiers with a mocking expression. "You pathetic fools! Let me teach you how to be a proper person." He pointed his sword towards the soldiers and roared, launching his attack. His swords flew towards the soldiers, striking them. A few soldiers, unable to react quickly, were hit. The others didn't fare much better. One by one, they were struck by the swords and sent flying backwards. After the attack, Truck Hung Tu gently landed on the ground. Before him lay the bodies of the soldiers scattered on the ground like straw. His eyes gleamed with delight, and he thought to himself, a perfect ending. My master will surely look at me differently. Noticing something amiss, Tran Tuet pointed upwards and shouted, "Master, I can't find that guy anymore." Truck Hung Tu heard this and looked around, then asked, "Can't find him?" "Can't find who?" Up above, the man named Vien Long, who had been standing on the platform just now, was nowhere to be seen. Seeing his disappearance, Truck Hung Tu stared at the empty spot with bewildered eyes. In his mind, he worriedly thought, damn, how did he escape? My perfect performance can't possibly go down the drain. Then, he quickly bowed before Ling Tian and made his own request. "Master, I'll chase after that guy right now. I'll bring back his head within a stick of incense." Surprisingly, Ling Tian calmly walked past him and gave him a different task. "You stay here and protect Tran Tuet." Truck Hung Tu exclaimed in surprise. "What?" His eyes flashed with utmost anger. "That guy is mine to handle." Towards the forest, Vien Long was calmly and leisurely leaving. As he walked, he was filled with anger, gnashing his teeth and complaining. He should have been able to kill Ling Tian and then raise Tan Van. Damn it! It was all thanks to that Truck Hung Tu who appeared and ruined everything. But didn't Ling Tian and his disciples have a falling out? Why did they come to help him? Even though Ling Tian's strength is now diminished due to the 1,000-year drought, his disciples are not opponents I can handle. I should return quickly to report to the leader. At this moment, a sound suddenly came from behind Ling Tian. He quickly reacted, attacking towards the back. The saber he flung directly stabbed into something. A wild boar was quickly killed by him and fell to the ground. Yuan Long looked at the beast he had just attacked and clicked his tongue. At this time, behind him was the figure of Ling Tian charging forward. He quickly sensed this, his eyes revealing a hint of vigilance. A tremendous noise echoed, dust rising high from the ground. In the forest below, the dust gradually settled. As it dissipated, the figure of Ling Tian became clearer. He placed his hand on the ground, using his sharp gaze to look straight ahead. From behind him, Vien Long approached, his voice filled with disdain. Hee. Is this your speed? Just as I thought. Lang Tian's face remained cold as ice. He turned his head. Suddenly, Vien Long raised his fist, ready to attack. He smirked triumphantly, shouting, "Where are you looking?" Taken completely by surprise, he was hit and flung back. Lang Tian was thrown back, his body slammed against a nearby tree. The impact was so loud that the nearby birds flew away in a panic. He walked closer and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha. Do you think you are still the legendary, powerful demon cult grandmaster of the past? Let me tell you, you're just a useless piece of trash now. Feeling belittled, he opened his eyes, his gaze as sharp as a knife, locking onto Yuanlong. Leaves continued to fall from the tree above. Drops of blood trickled from Ling Tian's mouth. He clenched his teeth tightly. Ling Tian's face turned dark, his expression incredibly uncomfortable. He thought to himself, damn it, right at this crucial moment, the system notification popped up again. Unable to activate Absolute Zone. Please wait for spiritual energy recovery and try again. He recalled using his spiritual energy, regretting his actions. He thought, I should have controlled it a bit, I wouldn't be in this predicament. Yuanlong stood arrogantly, a smug smile on his face. Ling Tian, you really don't know your place. You dare to chase me alone with your current cultivation? 1,000 years of life wasted. You don't even know when to advance or retreat. You've become too accustomed to your power. Today I, Yuanlong, will crush all your pride. I'll make you understand, without strength. He extended his hand, staring intently. You are nothing. Yuanlong clenched his fist, and a golden aura erupted from his hand. He drew his arm back, ready to strike. He roared, just how miserable you are! Then, he swung his fist, aiming directly at Ling Tian's head. His fist and energy were about to collide with Ling Tian's forehead. Suddenly, he was stopped, and his energy source vanished. Seeing him unharmed, he stood there stunned. He couldn't believe it. His fist had connected, yet the other man seemed unscathed. Could it be that his lifelong practice of diamond fist was simply ineffective against him? Yuanlong couldn't believe his own doubts, and he once again channeled his energy, preparing to attack. It was impossible. Absolutely impossible. Instantly, his hand once again touched the man's head. But strangely, every time he got close, his energy disappeared. He was incredibly worried, thinking to himself, before his strength could reach the man, it vanished. What was going on? Ling Tian remained calm, his gaze sharp, filled with deadly intent. Under Ling Tian's gaze, Yuanlong's face suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. He looked terrified and cried out, Don't look at me like that. This was the first time Yuanlong had seen such a look. He was 10 years old then, competing in the two-tiered children's rankings. He saw it in his father's eyes. Disappointment. His father was very disappointed in him. As the eldest son of the Yuan family, with his golden eyes, everyone had placed their hopes on him. But no matter how hard Yuanlong tried, he couldn't stop the number of such looks from growing. If he hadn't been born into such a family, if he hadn't had such eyes, would he have received some praise? He gritted his teeth, yelling in fury. Don't use those eyes! His eyes flashed with a golden light. Behind him stood a representation of a mighty, blazing golden lion. He reached out to attack, shouting, staring at me, die. His hand shot towards your head again. Surprisingly, as he aimed directly at your head, it felt like an invisible force. His source of power vanished suddenly. He was incredibly surprised, his mind filled with questions. His fist strike, however, was stopped by just 2 of Ling Tian's fingers. His expression turned pale, stunned, he muttered to himself. How my strongest attack, using all my spiritual power. He only needed 2 fingers. Yuanlong's hand hovered in midair, trembling uncontrollably. Seeing things had spiraled out of his control, he was no longer arrogant, but felt a growing fear. In his mind, he thought, his power surpasses mine, I must run. As he tried to move, strangely, even though he was here, his body remained motionless. In his mind, he wondered, my body won't move? I'm trapped? This is the power of space manipulation that only those at the martial immortal level can. Suddenly, Ling Tian sat up. He looked up, energy replenished. At his words, Yuanlong was utterly confused, thinking, replenish, what does replenishing energy mean? The system appears. The system notification panel. 100-fold penetration card, high-grade artifact, test version. After using this prop for 10 minutes, you can avoid all levels of attacks, deflect attacks, and transfer the opponent's attack strength to yourself, which you can then use. Suddenly, Yuanlong's feet are lifted off the ground. With Ling Tian's control, his entire body floats in midair. He looks up and asks, Do you want to live? Fearfully, he replies, I do. I really want to live. It was all because of this junior's foolishness that I committed such heinous acts. I beg you, senior, not to hold it against me. Consider this junior's words as nonsense. I, Yuanlong, will definitely wish you a lifetime of. Seeing him talk too much, Ling Tian impatiently interrupts. If you don't want to die, shut your mouth. Then, taking advantage of the situation, he makes a request. Now I'll ask you a question, and you answer it with one sentence. If you talk too much or lie, I will send you to the Western Heaven immediately. Where is your sect leader Lin Muxian now? He asked, looking at the man. He trembled and replied. The sect leader is at the Qilong Peak, the headquarters of the Ghost Soul sect. It was he who ordered me to take over the Yulam path, and it was also he who ordered me to deal with you, senior. I truly made a mistake. I'm not human, I should not have interfered with your will. Please, senior, spare my life. Seeing the man's pleas, his expression was extremely unpleasant. He thought to himself, I want to tape this man's stinking mouth shut. Lang Tian spoke. I'll spare you. At his words, the man, surprised, asked back. Really? He raised his hand, giving the man 2 choices, but only one of them had 2 choices. First, be my informant, be loyal to me only, work for me. Second, return to being a disciple of your ghost soul sect and continue to sell your life to Lin Mu Xian. Choose. Faced with his demands, Yuan Long gritted his teeth, thinking nervously. Isn't this like asking me to betray if the sect leader finds out? I'm dead for sure. Seeing he didn't want to answer, Ling Tian gave him a demand. Answer within 3 seconds or I'll send you to meet your maker. The man stammered. After a few seconds of deliberation, he hurriedly answered, I choose the first one. On the surface, he chose like that, but in his heart he secretly thought, if I choose 1 or 2, I'll die either way, so I'll just pretend first. Ling Tian saw through his thoughts and roared in anger, You dare to deceive me. He then furiously controlled him and slammed him to the ground. His whole face hit the ground hard. After giving him a lesson, Ling Tian controlled his hand to lift him up. He looked at the dizzy Vien Long, hovering in front of him, and roared, Choose again. He still couldn't believe it. His expression wasn't very pleasant. He thought to himself, could it be that he can read my mind? No, he's just guessing based on how long it took me to answer. Once again, he confirmed his answer. I choose number 1. Even if you kill me right now, I still choose 1. Lang Tian smiled contentedly. Good. Seeing his expression, he secretly rejoiced. It was exactly as he predicted, but suddenly, his eyes lit up, revealing a wicked gleam. Then I'll grant you your wish. Send him to the heavens. Afterwards, Lang Tian controlled Vien Long, making him suddenly soar high into the air. He flew up, even surpassing the forest. When he reached a certain height, he suddenly stopped. Then, he quickly plummeted down. As he plummeted, he was terrified to the point of tears. Yuan Long kept shouting, begging. I was wrong, Master Ling. If there is a next life, Yuan Long will never do such a stupid thing again. In the next life, I vow to serve you with all my loyalty, Master Ling. Faced with his plea, he raised his hand to control him. He stopped right in front of him. Ling Tian looked at him calmly and said, If you know you're wrong, I will give you a chance. Seeing that he was spared, Yuan Long vowed repeatedly. Thank you, Master Ling. Yuan Long will never disappoint you. After letting him go, he turned and prepared to leave. Seeing this, Yuan Long asked. Yes, so but before he could finish, Ling Tian replied. Good, then you can return to the Ghost Soul sect, he asked in disbelief. Return to the Ghost Soul sect? He confirmed. Yes, you will be my informant, a spy planted within the soul-devouring cult. Ling Tian stroked his chin, a calculating gleam in his eyes. The sun had reached its zenith in the forest. Below, Vien Long stood frozen, his entire body trembling in fear. He stammered, I informant? What? Seeing his hesitation, Ling Tian abruptly stopped and asked. I informant? Vien Long quickly shook his head in denial. No, he reached out, bowing his head in earnest. Vien Long will never disappoint the cult leader. He suddenly appeared before him. Ling Tian stared at him with an uncanny expression. He growled, Excellent. Then let's act out a play so real it's indistinguishable from the truth. Vien Long gasped. What? Without warning, he launched a fist towards Vien Long's face. Taken aback by the sudden attack, Vien Long couldn't react in time. His face turned pale as he watched the fist approach. He was quickly thrown away. A very loud noise echoed. He lay on the ground, his mind spinning, thinking, this is too much. Meanwhile, Ling Tian stood nearby, utterly satisfied, saying, this should be enough to fool Lam Ma Quinn. Once you're back at the ghost sect, don't contact me immediately. Just wait for my message. He started to stand up, trembling and replying. Understood. Then, Ling Tian offered a pill, saying, this is a top-grade healing elixir. Take it. He took the pill, sincerely thanking him. Vien Long thanks sect master. Then, Vien Long quickly turned and left, his body still trembling with pain. Watching him leave, Ling Tian put his hand on his chin, lost in thought. Lam Ma Quinn probably anticipated my arrival at the Blue Azure Path to save someone, but only sent a weakling like this to guard. What exactly is he plotting? The system suddenly appeared again. System announcement. Successfully rescued the disciples of the Pure Moon sect, leveled the Azure Cloud Path, and instilled fear in many behind-the-scenes figures. Received exchange points, 1,080 points. Successfully instigated the new Azure Cloud Path leader, Yuan Long, to work for you. Received bonus reward, 500 points. Received gratitude, respect, and admiration from 58 Pure Moon sect disciples. Received bonus reward, 500 points. After reading the system notification, his expression immediately brightened, and he excitedly exclaimed, I didn't expect 2,000 points to land in my pocket like that. It's the pinnacle. But his joy was short-lived, as the system abruptly announced, Truck Hung Tu committed evil deeds and killed innocent people, deducting exchange points, 1,800 points, making him so furious he vomited blood. Ling Tian roared in anger, "You godforsaken Truck Hung Tu, I will kill you!" Returning to Ling Tian's church, the divine beast descended to the courtyard. Tran Tuet and Truck Hung Tu quickly ran out to greet him. Both of them said in unison, "Master, you're back." After greeting him, Tran Tuet looked at him curiously and asked, "Master, what happened to the head of the Azure Dragon Path, Veen Long?" But before he could answer, Truck Hung Tu standing beside her quickly replied, "Little junior sister, do you not understand or are you pretending not to? If Master didn't make a move, then fine, but once he does, that person would be dead, without a grave to bury him." While the two of them were chattering, on the opposite side, Ling Tian remained silent with a very dark expression. Seeing this, Tran Tuet's eyes showed a clear sign of anxiety. She looked over at him, whispering, Master seems a bit strange seeing this." He asked back, "Little junior sister, do you think so too? Master keeps staring at you." She agreed, "That's right." Suddenly, Truck Hung Tu's expression also turned dark. He lowered his head and whispered, "Do you know what this means?" To his question with a hint of meaning, she still didn't understand the implication and asked back, "What does it mean?" Truck Hung Tu's eyes flashed with pride. He smirked smugly, "It means Master is very pleased with my performance this time, hee." Tran Tuet still couldn't believe it and asked again, Is that so?" He lifted his head, his demeanor extremely arrogant. "I am the one who understands Master best in this Minjiao County." Suddenly, his eyes flew open. Before him stood Ling Tian, his entire body radiating a chilling aura of killing intent, like a bomb with a lit fuse, ready to explode. Truck Hung Tu, no longer the arrogant figure he once was now pale and sweating. "Master," Ling Tian's gaze intensified, his voice filled with anger. "You evil creature, do you know your sins?" He trembled as he replied. "Sins? Your disciple does not know." Without further words, Ling Tian raised his hand high in the air. He looked at him and asked again, "You truly do not know?" Seeing this, Truck Hung Tu quickly knelt down and bowed his head in apology. "Master, your disciple truly does not know what crime he has committed. Please enlighten me." Seeing that he still did not acknowledge his wrongdoing, he asked again, "Have you murdered innocent people?" He lifted his head and repeated, "Your question." "Killing innocent people?" Then he sat up, his expression resolute as he asserted, "The people my disciple killed today were all villains who plotted to harm the Master. Except," seeing the last sentence, he seemed hesitant. Ling Tian pressed, "Except who?" Truck Hung Tu raised his head and answered, "Except the son of Cat Long Tuen." "You asked?" "The son of Cat Long Tuen?" He turned pale and quickly explained, "Today, I saw the young junior sister not only speak indecently, defaming her, but also acting brazenly in front of everyone. My disciple was momentarily enraged and took action to teach him a lesson. Who knew his bones were so weak that he died with a single strike?" Ling Tian turned to Tran Tuet and asked for confirmation. "Tran Tuet, is this true?" She replied honestly, "Yes, senior brother Truck wanted to avenge me. I didn't expect." Then, she quickly walked over to stand beside Truck Hung, bowing her head to plead, "Please forgive senior brother Truck. Master, please don't punish him." Ling Tian remained silent, giving no reply. Suddenly, he lowered his hand, and the killing intent radiating from his body vanished just as abruptly. He looked at the man and said, "Out of respect for Tran Tuet's honor, I will not punish you this time." Truck Hung Tu bowed his head and expressed gratitude. "Thank you, Master." The system displayed a notification. Successfully trained Truck Hung Tu, receiving reward points, 200 points. Ling Tian turned and left, saying, "Get up and follow me to the main hall." The man respectfully obeyed from behind. "Yes, Master." Suddenly, his fearful expression disappeared, replaced by a sly look. In his mind, he thought, "I thought Master had found out about that. I almost got caught." The old Master, not only did he kill innocent people, he was bloodthirsty by nature and extremely cruel to us. But the current Master is truly like a different person. On the other side of the hall, Ling Tian stepped in. Following behind him were Tran Tuet and Truck Hung Tu. Suddenly, countless palace maids appeared in the area. They all knelt down and bowed their heads, saying in unison, "Welcome back, Ling Tian. Thank you for saving our lives, Ling Tian." Then they looked up and expressed their gratitude. Seeing them finish their salutations, Ling Tian raised his hand, signaling for them to rise. They continued to say in unison, "Thank you, Ling Tian." Among the palace maids, a girl with shoulder-length hair looked at him shyly and whispered, "I heard that Ling Tian is over 1,000 years old. Why is he still so handsome and youthful?" The girl next to her added, "I admire senior sister Tran Tuet so much." On the other side, a girl with hazelnut brown hair also looked at him admiringly and exclaimed, "Ling Tian is so tall." Wherever Ling Tian went, he was followed by countless gazes from the palace maids. His expression was calm on the outside, but deep down, he felt incredibly awkward with so many people looking at him. He thought to himself, "This is the first time in my life that I've been looked at by so many girls. My heart is about to leap out of my chest. Calm down, calm down. Suddenly, he put his hand over his mouth and pretended to cough. Ling Tian glanced at a girl and called out. Tran Tuet. She replied. Yes, Tran Tuet, he spoke. The villain who occupied the Pure Moon Gate has been eradicated. And you tilt your head. Your expression is full of joy, as if the success is due to your master's assistance. Suddenly, he looked at everyone before him and declared. From now on, everyone must strive to rebuild the Pure Moon Gate. Tran Tuet heard this and felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her eyes widened in surprise. Then, she turned to him and asked. Master, what do you mean by that? Ling Tian replied. The Pure Moon sect has been reclaimed, but with the strength of your sisters, you cannot protect this place well. I believe you understand this better than I do, Tran Tuet. He spoke, and her gaze grew darker, revealing a sadness. Seeing her silence, he continued. You are the senior disciple of the Pure Moon sect master, Kat Humak, and you have the highest cultivation now. If the Pure Moon sect is to exist, it must depend on you and your sisters working together. Her steps seemed to falter, unable to continue. Tran Tuet straightened her back, looking at his silhouette from behind and asked solemnly. So, master wants me to stay? He replied. It's not me who wants you to stay. It's them. They need you, Tran Tuet. At the church, the girl with short hair clasped her hands and looked at Tran Tuet with sparkling eyes. Could it be that her senior sister wanted to leave them? The sister beside her chimed in, clearly just reunited. Not only that, everyone in the crowd looked at her and begged with fervent pleas. Hulu, don't leave! Senior sister, you won't abandon us, will you? Tran Tuet stood tall, her head bowed. Around her, her junior sister's cries echoed constantly. Senior sister! Senior sister! Senior sister! Senior sister! Senior sister! She gritted her teeth, hesitant to speak. In her mind, she recalled the words her mother had said to her before she passed away. Tran Tuet, if master is no more, you must take good care of everyone. Then, she remembered Ling Tian's help. 2 days later, master will help you save everyone, to level the Yulan Road. She stood between two sides, facing two incredibly difficult choices. Tran Tuet gritted her teeth, her body trembling uncontrollably. Seeing her silence, or any reaction, Lang Tian spoke. Tran Tuet, don't hesitate anymore. The Tin Noyet sect can't be without an heir. Suddenly, she looked directly at him, the disciple who had sworn to the heavens, this life and the next, to follow and care for the master, never to leave. Therefore, forgive this disciple for not being able to comply. Master, after much deliberation and hesitation, she finally made her decision. Faced with her choice, Lang Tian remained cold and expressionless. The other disciples behind her were deeply disappointed and saddened. Suddenly, Truck Hung Tu stepped forward. He bowed respectfully and said, Master, this disciple has some words. I don't know if I should say them or not. Lang Tian looked at him and allowed him. Say it if you wish. He looked at him, carefully stating his opinion. This disciple feels that it would be better to merge the Tin Noyet sect into our Huinmin sect. First, not only will we not violate Little Sister's oath, but the Pure Moon sect will also be protected by the Xianning sect. Other sects will definitely not dare to invade. Second, the Pure Moon sect will continue to develop as before, with Little Sister remaining as the sect leader. We will not interfere. As for the important matters of the sect, just leave them to your capable sisters. What do you think, Master? Lin Tian stroked his chin, deep in thought. This approach is quite good, but merging with the Xianning sect also means confronting the entire martial world. Then, following Truck Hung Tu's suggestion, he turned to look at Tran Tuet and asked, Even so, are you all willing to agree? Tran Tuet knew that facing the Ghost Soul sect alone could lead to the Pure Moon sect's destruction at any time, let alone facing the entire martial world. She absolutely couldn't put her sisters in such a dangerous situation. Suddenly, a loud noise came from behind. Tran Tuet turned her head. Behind her, she saw everyone from the Tin Noyet sect kneeling down, speaking in unison. We are willing to join the Huinmin sect. Her eyes widened in shock, and she exclaimed. Everyone! They all looked at her with unwavering determination. Sister Tran Tuet, without the Huinmin sect's help, we would have perished. We are willing to join the Huinmin sect to repay our debt to Senior Ling Tian. Please, Sister Tran Tuet, agree. Their desire and determination moved her deeply. Without hesitation, she turned back. Then, Tran Tuet knelt before Ling Tian and begged. My Tin Noyet sect is willing to join the Huinmin sect. Please, Master, grant your approval. With everyone's agreement, he looked at them, raised his head, and declared loudly. All right, from today, the Pure Moon sect officially merges with the mysterious light cult. We'll stand together through thick and thin. Then, all the members of the Pure Moon sect bowed their heads in submission, paying homage to the leader of the mysterious light cult. The system suddenly appeared. System notification. Successfully developed the mysterious light cult alliance. Awarding double points. 500 points. Tran Tuet's loyalty. Increased from 80% to 90%. Awarded points. 500 points. The sun began to set. In the main hall of the cult headquarters, Vien Long stretched out his hand in front of him, bowing his head in confession. My subordinate is incompetent and failed to protect the Orchid Path. Please punish me, leader. Seeing this, the leader asked him, if the Orchid Path has fallen, how were you able to return here? He replied that, my subordinate took advantage of Ling Tian's carelessness and escaped here. After hearing Vien Long's answer, the man called the sect master continued to ask, what did you bring back for me? He replied, I report to the sect master. As instructed, Vien Long has discovered the true strength of Ling Tian. The rumors for thousands of years were all a lie. His cultivation. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Vien Long clutched his chest, in excruciating pain. At that moment, blood began to pour from his mouth. After spitting blood, his entire body trembled uncontrollably. Vien Long wiped the blood from his mouth and said, his cultivation still remains at the middle stage of the martial god realm. A single move inflicted this level of injury upon me. If not for the sect master's concern, dispatching an additional 300 elite soldiers for me, I would have perished under Ling Tian's hands long ago. Not feeling satisfied, the sect master inquired, just this bit of information? He stammered, no, there's still. The demon head didn't come to Ulan alone this time. He also brought along Bamboo Prosperous too, the sword demon sect master's junior brother. Most of those 300 elite soldiers died at his hands. On the side, a man with brown hair turned to ask the person next to him, isn't that demon head cut off all ties with his disciples? Why is he suddenly making amends with Bamboo Prosperous too now? His senior brother replied, could it be that Ling Tian really wants to start over? Feeling unsure, he quickly took out a pill from his pocket and held it out. That demon head gave me a pill. He said he made it himself, and told me to bring it back to the sect master. Huff, huff. Under the sect master's control, the pill quickly left his hand. Then, the pill flew towards Lam Mukhuin's outstretched palm. He stared intently at the spirit pill and began to scrutinize it. Unwittingly, he smiled. Suddenly, the dragon below collapsed. He propped himself up with his arms, trying to get to his feet, his whole body trembling uncontrollably in pain. Seeing his dilapidated state, Lin Mu Xian commanded, someone, take the Long Duong leader to rest. 2 soldiers emerged from either side, carefully helping him up. As they supported him, Yuan Long tried to report. Master. There is still something Yuan Long wants to report. That demon. His face turned pale, continuously breaking out in cold sweat as if poisoned. Before he could finish his sentence, unable to hold on, he quickly fainted. Then, Lin Mu Xian commanded. That's all for today, everyone return to rest. His subordinates answered. Yes, master. In a different room, the walls and furniture were exquisitely carved. The man with short white hair followed him and asked. Truck Hung Tu appeared just in time. Could this be the result of the leader's secret manipulation? Lam Mukhuin replied. Noi Lao, this time I am only repaying a debt of gratitude. It was all a play orchestrated by this junior disciple of mine. He then took a letter and handed it to Noi Thien Thua. He opened the paper and began to read. Third senior brother, it's time to repay your debt of gratitude. Don't come to Lan Duong anymore. Arrange some people to act. It will help me gain the master's trust. Thanks. After reading a part of it, he said in confusion. What does he mean? At this moment, Lam Mukhuin turned his back and said, if you want to know who among us is the most unpredictable, it's none other than the 8th brother. I also want to know what's in his mind. What kind of tricks does he have up his sleeve? He put his hand on his chin, his expression filled with horror. After the decisive battle at Yulan Road, news of Truck Hung Tu's return to the Xianming sect spread like wildfire, leaving the entire martial arts world in astonishment. In a dimly lit room, a person with green hair glanced and exclaimed, You're saying what? The 8th brother is back in the Xianming sect? He's the 4th disciple of the True Soul Palace Elder, Zhuang Gaohan. A red-haired young man sitting nearby replied. They say he followed Ling Tian and killed countless people on the 3rd brother's territory. He's the 7th disciple of the True Soul Palace, Palace Master Qiu Xinghe. A girl with snow-white hair, stroking her pet, asked. You're talking about Truck Hung Tu? Is this news confirmed? She is the 5th disciple and the Palace Master of the Heavenly Slaughter Palace, Missouri Yaoli. At the hot spring, Xin Yuanqing sat immersed in the water, her expression filled with worry, thinking to herself. It seems the 8th brother truly went to Yulan Road. What is he thinking? On the other side, at this moment, Qiu Wenyao was filled with anger. He tore the piece of paper in his hand and growled. The traitor! I must go find him and get an explanation. In the forest, a loud sneeze echoed. Achoo! Seeing this, his subordinate behind Truck Hung Tu worriedly asked. Young master, are you alright? He rubbed his nose and replied. I'm fine, the wind in the forest is a bit cold. Truck Hung Tu felt a surge of murderous intent approaching from all directions. However, he had anticipated this. While walking, he suddenly remembered something and asked, Yunner, have you found out anything about what I asked you to investigate earlier? The girl replied yes, but it's not enough. Yunner took out a piece of paper and respectfully presented it to him, with only a few brief notes on it. Please have a look, master. Truck Hung Tu took the paper and examined it. Looking at the notes on the paper, he glanced at it with confusion and asked, there are still many things in these notes that I can't understand. Who is trying to conceal the truth about my master? In the sky, at this moment, Ling Tian and Tran Tuet were riding on the back of a divine beast. The divine beast Chongming slowly spread its wings and soared through the sky. Ling Tian sat in a meditative posture with his eyes closed and spoke, Tran Tuet. She quickly turned her head and responded, yes, master. He asked, what do you think of your brother Zhu's performance today? Tran Tuet replied, Master, not only is the bamboo master decisive in killing the enemy, he has also actively helped you on numerous occasions. Most importantly, he can anticipate your concerns, which is a rare ability. Suddenly his expression turned icy cold, his eyes filled with a chilling aura of killing intent. Faced with his frightening expression, she quickly covered her mouth with her hand, her body trembling in fear. Master, did I say something wrong? I am guilty of death, please forgive me. He stroked his chin, his expression thoughtful. You are not wrong, but your words just now made me think of something important. She secretly glanced at him, wondering in her mind. What important thing? He suddenly turned around, praising her. You performed well today. When we return, I will teach you how to refine some medicinal pills. Overjoyed, she knelt down and bowed in gratitude. Thank you, master, Lang Tian continued, looking at her. I hope you can reach the realm of martial emperor soon, then I can gift you a heavenly grade cultivation technique. Suddenly, Tran Tuet's body began to tremble again. A natural talent? Her eyes lit up, expressing her joy. She also couldn't help but express her gratitude. I will definitely practice diligently, master, and not let down your love. At the Lingtian temple. In the main hall, he walked ahead while Tran Tuet followed slowly behind. As they reached the door, he gestured. I'm going to rest, you should go rest too. She bowed and bid farewell. Yes, master. Ling Tian calmly entered his room. The system appeared. The system announced. Detected disciples Trong Chao Han, Q Chin Hop, Mac Dioli. The judging eye function has been activated. Reward points, 600 points. Trang Chao Han, human, mid-stage martial god realm. Elder of the Spirit Soul Palace, hosts 4th villain. Primary cultivation, heaven grade special heart method, blood poison bone sutra, peak, heaven grade advanced blood demon flame Dan manual, peak. Weapon, dark blood heavenly demon furnace, heaven grade special. Loyalty, minus 60%, judged to be a traitor. Xiaoyu Zhenghe, human, late-stage martial god realm. Palace Master of the Spirit Soul Palace, host 7th villain. Primary cultivation, heaven grade special earth kill heavenly Tsang heart method peak, heaven grade advanced violent flame decret peak. Weapon, earth kill violent flame flag, heaven grade special. Loyalty, minus 70%, judged to be a traitor. Amodioli, human, disguised, mid-stage martial god realm, heavenly slaughter palace, palace master, host 5th villain. Primary cultivation, heaven grade special heart method, heavenly slaughter 2, jade heart sutra, peak, heaven grade advanced illusion heart 2 jade decree, peak. Weapon, heart thread tendril snake immortal, heaven grade special. Loyalty, minus 50%, judged to be a traitor. He looked at the images displayed by the system. The minions had just left Azure Blue Road, and these scum had already received the news. Knowing that Truck Hung Tu had returned to his Xianming sect, they probably wouldn't dare act rashly for the time being. This time, thanks to Tran Tuet and Truck Hung Tu, they didn't have to waste too many prop cards and managed to find a weakness in Azure Blue Road. They should be generously rewarded. Then he ordered. System, open the shop. The system took him to another space, and the system screen displayed skill options. Remembering his promise to Tran Tuet, he quickly selected the elixir category, buying the elixir he promised to Tran Tuet earlier. With the current situation, Tran Tuet's cultivation speed is faster than someone who has been suffering from a 1,000-year drought like him. To prevent situations where he cannot use the absolute area like this time, he needs someone skilled to protect him. Although Truck Hung Tu's strength is far beyond Tran Tuet's, his loyalty is not trustworthy. He needs to protect Tran Tuet by helping her improve her strength quickly. Ling Tian squinted his eyes. A blue elixir appeared. The system announced. Nap Kai Tak Lin Noi Hoa Dan X3, mid-level earth grade positive yang and negative yin, pure yang water, pure and weak, pure yang fire, powerful properties, harmonious balance, nurturing all things, opening meridians, replenishing blood, increasing spiritual energy, healing wounds, all expertly concocted, remarkably fast cultivation speed. Use for 1 week, 3 pills per day, 3 sets. Points required, 880 points. He smiled contentedly, clicking to purchase. This is it. He turned back to the main room. Truck Hung Tu returned. He flung open the door and shouted, Master, Junior Sister, I'm back. Do you miss me? But he was met with an endless silence. Truck Hung Tu walked in. He touched his face, puzzled and confused. They were inside. I should be the one who was supposed to come back before them. Where did they go? Suddenly, an incredibly fragrant smell filled his nostrils. He turned towards the source of the aroma. This smell was. He quickly rushed forward, propping himself up on the dining table. His eyes lit up, filled with longing, wondering, a table full of delicious food? How is this possible? Suddenly, an idea popped into his head. I know. Truck Hung Tu's expression was arrogant and self-assured. He answered his own question. My master must be very pleased with my outstanding performance today, but he didn't want to praise me directly, so he asked my junior sister to prepare a delicious meal for me. Without hesitation, he quickly picked up the chopsticks to grab the food, just when he was starving, to taste his junior sister's skills. But before the chopsticks touched the dish, Tran Tuet suddenly appeared from behind, her expression clearly revealing a murderous intent. She growled, "Put those chopsticks down." Truck Hung Tu quickly put the chopsticks back in their place. He turned his head, his face pale, trembling as he tried to calm her down. There's no need to rush, junior sister." Tran Tuet's expression didn't improve much. Holding the plate of food in her hand, she sneered, "You thought this was prepared for you, huh?" Haha. Before her anger, he trembled and replied, "I thought this was prepared for me, huh?" Haha. Misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. At this moment, Lang Tian stepped out of the room, looking at the two of them before asking, "What's all this noise?" He bowed his head respectfully and answered, Nothing, junior sister and I were just joking around." She remained indifferent and quickly invited Lang Tian to eat. "The food's ready, master. Please join us for dinner." He looked at them and smiled, replying, "Today is a day of great joy to celebrate in the hundreds of years of our Huinmin sect. Let's all sit down and eat." Both of them answered in unison, "Yes, master." At the dinner table, Ling Tian looked at them and announced, "Today, we were able to suppress the ghost cult, and you two have contributed greatly. The Xianming sect always rewards and punishes fairly. Since you have contributed today, you will be rewarded." Seeing the reward, Tran Tuet's eyes sparkled with anticipation. She thought to herself, "Reward? What kind of reward will I get?" However, Truck Hung Tu was not as happy. On the contrary, he felt a little scared, thinking, "What is master planning? It's impossible to guess." Ling Tian took out a small wooden box and gave it to her. "Tran Tuet, this is the mid-grade earth-grade medicine that I promised to refine for you earlier. This pill can help you speed up your cultivation and break through to the mid-stage martial king realm soon." Seeing the box, her eyes that were already bright became even brighter. Looking at the box, she excitedly thought, "Mid-grade earth-grade. The low-grade earth-grade sky spirit yuan chi pill had such a powerful effect. Now it's a mid-grade one, it must be incredibly powerful." He did not stop there. He took out a scroll of martial arts and placed it on the table. "In addition, I'm rewarding you with a top-grade Xian class martial arts, the Linked Heart Flower Dance. This martial arts is an upgraded version of the Green Lotus Heart Sutra. I hope you can practice diligently and improve your cultivation." She received the two rewards from him, her expression full of happiness. Tran Tuet repeatedly thanked him. "Thank you, master. Tran Tuet will definitely cultivate diligently and break through to the mid-stage martial king realm soon." Truck Hung Tu looked at the rewards given to Tran Tuet. He smiled, thinking to himself, "Master is so generous. It seems there really is a reward, haha." Then, Ling Tian suddenly called out his name. Truck Hung Tuesday. Truck Hung Tu jumped up and quickly replied, "Yes, master." He propped his hand up and looked at him, speaking, "Today, you not only have the merit of protecting Tran Tuet, but also actively came up with plans to help your master, resolving his troubles. If you want a reward, you can tell me directly, and I will try my best to fulfill it." Hearing his offer, Truck Hung Tu opened his eyes wide in surprise. The excitement on his face was gone, replaced by a worried expression. In his mind, he thought, "This is certainly a trap set by my master. He wants me to speak up and then try to fulfill my request. He's digging a hole for me to jump into, isn't he, master?" Seeing that he still didn't respond, he asked again, "Tell me, what do you want?" Truck Hung Tu hesitated. Suddenly, he reached out his hand in front of him, bowed his head and pleaded, "Master, I have made a mistake today. I dare not ask for a reward. I only hope to make amends for my mistakes." Having anticipated his answer, Ling Tian's eyes flashed with sharpness, and he thought to himself, "This fellow will surely answer like this. He must be afraid that I will strike him down with heavenly thunder if he asks for a reward." Ling Tian spoke, shattering his hesitation. "I will not pursue your mistake today. Feel free to tell me the reward you desire, and I will try my best to fulfill it." Truck Hung Tu, stunned, reached behind his head and asked again, "Is it really possible?" He replied, "As your master, I would never go back on my word." Seeing that he was truly being rewarded, he hesitated and said, Disciple wishes to ride the Chongming bird." As soon as he uttered his request, Ling Tian froze, a myriad of question marks flashing in his mind, with no answer in sight. As if afraid of angering him with his request, he quickly raised a trembling finger and said, I mean, can disciple ride the Chongming bird once? Just once. Hearing this, he propped his hand against his face, his expression utterly helpless. He thought to himself, this guy, he almost went insane and used the celestial lightning. Suddenly, a familiar sound came from outside. Truck Hung Tu glanced over, his mind filled with confusion. Ling Tian looked at his hand and said, I've already called the Chongming bird. Today, you can ride it freely. With his permission, Truck Hung Tu quickly ran out, thanking his master and saying, I'll go first. After he left, the man was furious, snapping his chopsticks in his rage. He muttered to himself, this scoundrel! I lent him the weightless bird, and his loyalty hasn't improved a bit. The system suddenly appeared. The system announced, Congratulations, host, for successfully planting a spy in the ghost armor. You have received a reward of 200 points. Side quest activated. Whether a battle can be won ultimately depends on acquiring information from the enemy as quickly and accurately as possible. Starting today, develop spies in every location and use them to gather valuable information. Reminder, developing spies requires careful selection of suitable and useful individuals. Avoid developing them indiscriminately, or you will be punished. The man looked at the system's notification in his mind and pondered. It seems like the Dragon King has truly submitted. Wait, there's a mission? Suddenly, his eyes widened in astonishment. The system asked, You've detected the presence of a suspected vile creature nearby. Will you use the Judgment Eye punishment? He put his hand to his chin, lost in thought. If the Eye of Judgment had detected Ka Van Du, then he must be in the Tuet Tin Mountain now. Unfortunately, the Eye of Judgment cannot pinpoint his exact location. Risking exposure is not worth it compared to observing quietly. He's just a ruthless villain, nothing to worry about. It's just so annoying. Again? What a lively day. Suddenly, 3 system notifications popped up simultaneously. Reading the notifications, his eyes widened in shock. The system continuously reported. Detected the appearance of the ruthless villain Tam Yin Tan nearby. Use the Eye of Judgment punishment. Detected the appearance of the ruthless villain Mak Tiu Li nearby. Use the Eye of Judgment punishment. Detected the appearance of the ruthless villain Trang Chao Han nearby. Use the Eye of Judgment punishment. Ling Tian was furious. He growled, These ruthless villains! Today, I will capture you all. How to be worthy of the title of Grand Master of the Devil's Path. Up in the sky, Truck Hung Tu, hands folded and expression supremely arrogant, rode on the back of the divine beast, the Chongming bird, truly worthy of its legendary reputation. In the blink of an eye, they covered thousands of miles. He suddenly brought his hand to his chin, his expression filled with confusion. To tame a divine beast of such innate quality is truly difficult. How did my master do it? He asked. Suddenly, the divine beast's eyes widened. It started to accelerate. Taken by surprise, he lost his footing. Then, without any warning, the divine beast surged forward. His face filled with terror, he gripped the beast's feathers tightly, screaming, What's wrong with you? Stop this! But instead of stopping, the vermilion bird flew even faster. It swooped in a spiral. Truck Hung Tu held onto its feathers tightly, his face pale with dizziness. He trembled and said stop, but the vermilion bird paid no attention, continuing to dive forward in a spiral. Truck Hung Tu could no longer hold on, and due to the dizziness, he immediately vomited. His head spun and he slowly lost consciousness. He lay on the vermilion bird's back, unconscious. Then, his hand began to move. He opened his eyes and asked drowsily, Stopped, right? Am I still alive? He tilted his head and looked to the side. This place seemed a bit familiar. When he woke up, he had been returned to the temple. Suddenly, Ling Tian approached from afar. Hearing the noise, he quickly turned his head and said, Master. Without a word, Ling Tian suddenly called out to the phoenix. Seeing this, Truck Hung Tu was terrified and tried to stop him. Wait, master. Immediately, the phoenix shot up like an arrow. He propped himself up on the back of the divine beast, wondering in his mind why his master was in such a hurry to call the phoenix back. Could it be? Suddenly, Ling Tian asked, How can I find your senior brother, Ka Van Du? He asked back in confusion, Master, what do you want to do? Ling Tian replied, He's here. Seeing that, he immediately stood up straight, his expression extremely stunned. You mean the senior brother? Is that Tuet Tin Mountain? Seeing his surprise, he turned his head and looked at him with a murderous expression. Not arranged by you? He pointed at himself, countless question marks flashing in his head. Me? Ling Tian said, If I say, not only your senior brother came, but also your 4th senior brother, Trang Chao Han, and your 5th senior sister, Mak Dio Ly came too. What do you think? Seeing him doubting him, Truck Hung Tu quickly raised his hand in front of him, bowed his head sincerely. Master, your disciple really doesn't know anything. But your disciple thinks they didn't come here to find you. He asked back, Then who? He answered boldly. I'm looking for my disciple. Ling Tian asked in confusion. Looking for me? He replied respectfully. They must have heard about my disciple helping his master resolve the Azure Path issue, and have returned to the Cold Heart Mountain. They want to come and ask you about it. Ling Tian frowned and looked at him. He then replied, "What you said does make sense. I'll believe you for now." He clasped his hands and bowed. "Thank you, master." Then he spoke again. "I doubt they know you are already aware of their arrival. We can take advantage of this opportunity, capture them." As he said this, Truck Hung Tu suddenly clenched his fist, his eyes becoming sharp. Ling Tian brought his hand up to his chin, looking at him thoughtfully. "This guy is not ordinary. He actually shares my thoughts." Then, he stood facing him and said, "One arrow hitting 3 targets, I can't do it alone. After all, your senior brother and senior sister aren't fools. If they sense danger, they will leave immediately. So, who should we catch first?" Truck Hung Tu replied respectfully. "Fourth senior brother, Trang Gao Han, or fifth senior sister, Enmo Yao Li." Seeing this, he asked. "Why?" he explained. "Out of the 3, fourth senior brother Trang Gao Han is the most dangerous. To make the real Soul Temple stand firm, he used deadly poison to eliminate countless sects, and even used living people to refine poison. He is truly immoral and unscrupulous." Next is fifth senior sister Enmo Yao Li. Her heavenly slaughter palace, since its founding, has not only swallowed up other forces, but also secretly colluded with the Western Realm Vu tribe and the Northern Barbarian Demon tribe. Even the battles that happened on the border of Central Continent before, were all influenced by the heavenly slaughter palace. Your disciple believes that fifth senior sister is involved in the collusion with demons, and will definitely cause a bloody war in the future. Hearing this, he was in complete agreement, and happily agreed. He continued, "The Spirit Soul Temple and Heavenly Slaughter Palace are both closely connected to the Ghost Soul sect. Now that the Spirit Soul Temple is growing stronger, with Heavenly Slaughter Palace as its powerful arm, it will become the greatest obstacle to our eradication of the Ghost Soul sect in the future." Hearing Truck Hung Tu's analysis, he asked, "Since you've thought this through, what plan do you have?" Facing Ling Tian's anticipation, he bowed his head and asked, "Master, I believe with your strength, you can definitely stop the 4th and 5th senior siblings. As for the eldest senior brother, I'll handle him. What do you think?" At Truck Hung Tu's suggestion, his eyes filled with anger, and he thought to himself, "You want to push the hard part onto me, you bastard." Then, Truck Hung Tu quickly boarded his sword and departed. "Master, I'll go lure them out now. I'll contact you if there's anything." On Ling Tian's side, seeing him leave so calmly, he clenched his fist, his body trembling with fury. In the forest, a small blade of grass swayed continuously. That's Truck Hung Tuesday. He's holding a blade of grass in his mouth, swaying. He's sitting on a tree, eyes closed, humming a tune. Suddenly, the grass nearby starts to turn dark. In a flash, it becomes withered. Noticing the change, he opens his eyes to observe. Before him is the figure of Zhuang Gao Han approaching. Truck Hung Tu, sitting high above, looks down and cheerfully greets him. "Long time no see, 4th senior brother. You're even more gloomy than before." Zhuang Gao Han shows no concern and gets straight to the point. "8th junior brother, I'm only here to ask you 2 things. If you want to live, you'd better be truthful." He sits on the tree, cheerfully joking. "Still the same old you, senior brother. At least learn some social skills when you're not making medicine, haha." A green snake suddenly appears from behind the tree and slowly climbs up. Sensing something unusual, he turned his head, surprised, and looked up. Before him, a snake with a wide open mouth was charging towards him. It opened its mouth wide, then bit hard into Truck Hung Tu's neck. Unprepared, he was quickly hit, and blood began to flow from his mouth. Then, suddenly, he felt dizzy. Unable to stand, he immediately fell. Truck Hung Tu fell face down onto the ground, making a loud thud. In front of him, a girl walked forward and said, "We didn't come here to listen to gossip, junior brother." That's Mo Daily. Even though he was bitten by a venomous snake, while lying on the ground, Truck Hung Tu still smiled obsequiously. "Long time no see, 5th senior sister. You've become even more beautiful and charming, cough cough." Suddenly at this time, a sword came flying from afar. The sword landed in the ground right in front of him. It was Ka Wen Yao. Wen Yao stepped forward, picked up her sword, and spoke harshly, "If you answer incorrectly, this sword will not hesitate to pierce through your brain." From above, Ling Tian stood on the back of the mythical beast, looking down at the shop. The medicinal pill appeared, along with its information below. Long Yang by Zhuanjia Dudan, Heavenly Grade Special, Exchange Points, 1200. Information. Made with dragon blood mixed with hundreds of earthly poisons, refined with the pure sun's fire for 9,981 days, then soaked in dew from the rain for 100 days. This pill is a panacea for all earthly poisons, but its potency is extremely toxic and powerful. It is best to not use it unless absolutely necessary. He brought his hand to his chin, looking at the system notification, pondering. The 4th elder's poison is the most deadly in the world. Only this pill can protect his life. But the price is a bit unacceptable. Remaining exchange points, 3,232 points. But after thinking it over, he decided to buy it. Forget it, it's a fair trade. Buy. System notification. Successfully exchanged for 2 Yang Bai Juan poison reversing pills. Current exchange points, 832. After the exchange, Ling Tian clenched his fist, his expression filled with rage. He growled, for these 2,400 exchange points, I must catch you today, Zhang Gaohan. Back to the lower part of the forest. The grass underfoot, where Zhang Gaohan was walking, had withered. From above, he looked down at Truck Hung Tu lying on the ground and asked, Did you really return to the Xianming sect? Eighth brother? Truck Hung Tu, lying on the ground, his face pale from the poison, resolutely replied, Yes. I have returned. At the same time, Mo Dioli approached and asked, Why did you do that? Have you forgotten what happened before, haven't you? Truck Hung Tu smiled genuinely and replied, After wandering for so many years, I just wanted to see how things were at the Absolute Love Mountain, and to stay with Master. When Dio, holding her sword pointed at his back, said unhappily, It's a waste of time to get information from this guy. Let's just get rid of this traitor. Scoffing at the senior brother's words, he said, Traitor? If only your head was as sharp as your sword, senior brother. As soon as he finished speaking, Ka Van Die's eyes blazed with fury, wanting to devour him whole. Ka Van Die raised his sword, ready to strike down the sharp-tongued Truck Hung Tu. Hoping that his tongue would finally be silenced after death, he lay on the ground, watching the descending sword. Ka Van Die aimed the sword straight at his wide-open eyes. He plunged the sword down without mercy. Ka Van Die smiled triumphantly. Go in peace, eighth brother! His eyes suddenly widened, revealing a look of shock. Below him was a sword plunged straight into the ground. The figure of Truck Hung Tu had vanished without a trace. Looking at the puddle in front of him, Die stammered, Water? Could it be? Suddenly, Truck Hung Tu's voice reached their ears. The 9th move of the Heavenly Spirit returning sword technique. Baoan Hon Hin. Image transformation. Ka Van Die quickly turned towards the source of the voice. He was emerging from the forest. His expression was cold. As he walked, he said, Our brotherhood, lasting for so many years, was I simply being delusional? How heartbreaking. He then feigned wiping away fake tears. MacDually looked at him and said, We're not here to play games with you. Ka Van Die added, If the 3 of us attack, your tricks won't save you. Truck Hung Tu furrowed his brow. His mouth curled into a mocking smile as he spoke. I was going to tell you everything from the start. Why did you draw your swords without saying anything? MacDually said. Yesterday, we received your message telling us not to go to Lulam Duong. We thought you had a plan to get rid of Master, but it seems you were using this opportunity to gain his trust. What are you really up to? Truck Hung Tu smirked and replied, This junior disciple. But before he could finish, a familiar voice rang out from behind him. What is he up to? Let your master tell you. It was Ling Tian. He turned to his 3 former disciples, his voice filled with anger. At his appearance, all 3 of them simultaneously exclaimed, Master. Ling Tian, Ling Tian. Ling Tian observed the expressions of his former disciples, and asked, You seem surprised to see me. If I'm not mistaken, this is the Jueqing Mountain? Trang Chao Han spoke. Master's appearance truly defies the laws of heaven. Mo Diaoli noticed the change in Trang Chao Han's demeanor and turned to him, asking, Big brother, what's wrong? He replied nervously, Nothing. It's just a sudden chill. At the same time, he worried silently in his head, Oh no, Master must have found out. Seeing Ka Van Die, Lang Tien turned to him and asked, Old Ka, we meet again today. Did you like the gift I gave you last time? Trang Chao Han looked at the greeting between them, thinking to himself, Old Ka. Gift? Suddenly, Ka Van Die put his hand out, his face pale as he explained, Master, I suddenly remember I haven't chopped the firewood at home. I have to go. Before Lang Tien could respond, Ka Van Die took off running. Next to them, Mo Diaoli and Trang Chao Han watched him leave with disdain. Trang Chao Han stared at Lang Tien, thinking to himself, although Lang Tien looks rejuvenated, his Dantian's spiritual energy is mediocre, and his cultivation level is weak. Even the aura of a great demon king on him has changed. My elder brother, who used to fear nothing, is now so frightened. There must be a reason. Seeing them still standing there, Ling Tian asked, You 2 aren't running? Hearing his question, Mo Diaoli turned to ask, Brother, what now? Trang Chao Han stared at him and said, Ling Tian, I heard you've regained your former strength. Seeing his master still silent, Truck Hung Tu, standing beside him, answered, Of course, otherwise why do you think the eldest senior brother would run away in fear? While his master wasn't angry yet, the junior brother urged the 2 to leave immediately. At Truck Hung Tu's answer, Trang Chao Han smiled. His body emitted a thick aura of killing intent. Good. Because my current strength has surpassed my former master. Trang Chao Han raised his hand, gathering strength and preparing to attack. Ling Tian looked at them and asked, Surpassed me from before? You really don't know your place. He pulled out a sword, and mystical energy emanated around his body. On Zhang Gaohan's side, he didn't want to be at a disadvantage. He challenged, Let's try it then, Ling Tian. The next day, he and Mo Diaoli charged forward together. One after the other, they flew towards him. He looked at them, his brow furrowed, thinking to himself. They're attacking together? I have to seize the opportunity and use my absolute domain. Suddenly, Ling Tian's eyes widened in shock. Instead of targeting him, both of them bypassed him and headed towards his rear. It turned out that their actual target was Truck Hung Tu. Seeing Zhang Gaohan and Mo Diaoli charging towards him, he panicked and yelled, "Hey! Senior brother, senior sister, why are you targeting me?" Ling Tian turned his head, frowning at them, silently wondering in his mind, those two bastards knew my spiritual power was weakened from the start, thinking that eliminating Truck Hung Tu first would be a great accomplishment, right? Well, that's good. Let me see if this Truck Hung Tu is truly as powerful as he claims. On Truck Hung Tu's side, the two of them charged towards him from opposite directions at an incredible speed. Seeing himself in a disadvantageous situation, Truck Hung Tu quickly asked, "Junior brother, hasn't your poison technique improved greatly? Why don't you test your skills against Master?" Hearing his words, Ling Tian stood nearby, staring at him with a very unpleasant expression, silently cursing him in his mind. "That damn dog." Zhang Gaohan charged towards him, saying, "I think you're a better match." Truck Hung Tu looked panicked, pointing his sword forward and shouting, "You bunch, if you're so tough, come one at a time. Let's do a one-on-one. I'm not afraid of anyone." And Mo Diaoli rushed forward, shouting, "Grant my wish." She then used her whip to attack. It was like a giant python with immense energy, charging toward him. Truck Hung Tu didn't back down. He drew his sword and began to unleash his energy, the 10th move of the Heaven Spirit Complete Sword Technique. He pointed his sword at Mo Diaoli. From the sword, energy emanated, forming a valiant bird. Both Truck Hung Tu and Mo Diaoli's beasts charged directly at each other. As they drew closer, Mo Diaoli's serpent opened its mouth wide, ready to attack. Truck Hung Tu didn't let himself be outdone and charged forward recklessly. Gradually, they transformed into a source of power. Day by day, the two sources of power draw closer to each other. Finally, they attack each other head-on. The collision of the two energy sources creates a deafening explosion. On Ling Tian's side, he has to raise his hand to shield himself from the radiating spiritual energy. He silently thinks to himself, "The intensity of both sides' spiritual energy is evenly matched." On Mak Dioli's side, she grits her teeth, her expression intensely focused. As she attacks, she silently thinks, "Whoever's spiritual energy depletes first loses." On Truck Hung Tu's side, he frowns in annoyance and mutters to himself, "Damn it, this is really frustrating." Both sides remain evenly matched, neither willing to yield. Suddenly, Mak Dioli on the opposite side speaks. "Eighth brother, it seems you haven't been idle these past few years. You're just as impetuous as the rumors say." Truck Hung Tu frowned in annoyance and replied, "Of course." Her eyes suddenly became extremely smug. Mo Diaoli sneered, "But unfortunately, I've won this round." As soon as she finished speaking, he looked ahead with a look of utter astonishment. The spiritual energy of both sides had undergone a change. Ling Tian watched from the side, thinking to himself, "Truck Hung Tu's spiritual energy is declining, it's truly plummeting." Suddenly, Truck Hung Tu's spiritual energy began to dwindle. On the other side, Mo Diaoli said, "I'm sorry, junior brother, farewell." Her eyes widened in terror. "You fool," she said. Truck Hung Tu stared at the scene before him with a look of utter shock. The source of spiritual power began to attack him. His eyes widened in utter terror. At this moment, Mo Diaoli's spiritual power took over and completely overwhelmed that of Truck Hung Tu's. A deafening sound echoed. On the ground, a huge, long trail appeared as if someone had dug through it. Ling Tian stood nearby, watching, his eyes revealing surprise as he silently thought, Truck Hung Tu's spiritual power has completely vanished. On the ground, a few of Truck Hung Tu's belongings appeared. Mo Diaoli looked at them and spoke. "This is the consequence of betrayal. Don't blame your senior sister for being heartless, Lao Ba." Suddenly, from behind her, a long sword pierced through her chest. Her eyes hadn't recovered. Her expression was utterly shocked and surprised. Blood flowed from the wound down her body. What was happening? Then it flowed down her legs, forming a large pool of blood. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed from behind. "Don't blame your junior brother for being heartless, senior sister. Those are the right words, aren't they? It's Truck Hung Tuesday, he's not dead, and he's holding the sword that pierced through Mo Diaoli's chest." The wound made her unable to stand and she collapsed. Her eyes went blank. Trembling, she asked, "Your spiritual power just now, is it all gone? Why is it like this?" Truck Hung Tu looked at the blood-stained sword, smiled and replied, "The Sea of Souls is a powerful technique. The next second, it shuts down all spiritual power. Actually, perfecting the soul shot is just to buy time. Launch a fatal move from behind the enemy." Ling Tian stepped forward from behind. He observed Truck Hung Tu, his face cold, thinking silently, being able to hide spiritual power to the point where no one can detect it. Just how strong is Truck Hung Tu? Zhang Gaohan stepped forward and stood in front of her, calling her name, "Junior sister?" Mo Diaoli looked at him, tremblingly made her dying wish, "Senior brother, you must avenge me. Suddenly, he felt something was wrong. Zhang Gaohan gritted his teeth, frowning silently, thinking, how could the fifth junior sister, even at the mid-level of the martial god realm, not be able to avoid this move from Truck Hung Tu? Immediately, his eyes widened. He quickly dodged away from Mo Dearly. Trang Chao Han swung his arm, turned and ran, thinking to himself, no wonder, I felt something was strange from the beginning. It was all a trap set by those two. As he ran, he didn't forget to turn his head and warn them, don't let me catch you next time, or I will definitely put you in the alchemy furnace to be refined into gods. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes, countless question marks flashing in his mind. A source of power struck down right in front of him, preventing him from escaping. Trang Chao Han covered his eyes with his hand to shield himself from the dust. Emerging from the thick dust was Ling Tian's figure. Accompanying him was his furious voice. The ultimate mountain is a place anyone can come if they want. Trang Chao Han's eyes widened, staring in shock. A powerful wave of spiritual energy emanated from Ling Tian, along with a terrifying aura of killing intent. He looked at Trang Chao Han, his voice filled with anger. You want to leave? Just go then. Ling Tian stood blocking Trang Chao Han's path. He frowned, clenching his teeth, wondering in his mind, why is Ling Tian so fast? His Dantian spiritual energy only showed a martial general's level, right? Could it be that he's hiding his true strength? Suddenly, he raised his hand. Trang Chao Han was taken aback by his action. He looked at him with astonishment, thinking, that stance, I've never seen such a move before. Suddenly, Ling Tian clenched his fist. Trang Chao Han's eyes widened in astonishment. A fierce source of spiritual energy emanated from Ling Tian's body. Then, Ling Tian moved with lightning speed. Trang Chao Han, with an expression of utter disbelief, muttered to himself, his spiritual energy impossible. Suddenly, he thrust his fist forward towards him. He hesitated, wait. But before he could finish his sentence, he was hit by one of Ling Tian's moves and sent flying. The sudden attack caused him to crash into a nearby rock. The impact was not insignificant. Trang Chao Han even coughed up blood. Dust rose from the ground where he slid past. A deep dent appeared at the point of impact. Trang Chao Han struggled to his feet, coughing continuously. The system notification appeared. Time remaining for the counterattack cheat card, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Outside, Ling Tian's expression remained cold and unchanging. But internally, he secretly rejoiced. The power of the counterattack cheat card was truly overpowered. 5 minutes was more than enough to deal with this bastard. Suddenly, he burst into laughter. Ha ha! I can't believe how strong my master's weak body is. He laughed, wiping his mouth with his hand. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, flashing a terrifyingly dangerous glint. This would be perfect for making poison. Seeing Zhang Gaohan still able to stand, Ling Tian frowned and thought to himself, this guy he can actually withstand a blow from a heaven-grade supreme reverse heaven card. His eyes suddenly glowed, his expression chilling and devoid of any warmth. Feel my breath. A massive amount of poison suddenly emanated from his body, the flowers still fresh nearby, instantly withered as this poison passed. He laughed triumphantly as he released the poison. This is an incurable poison. Just a little touch will make your body rot and you'll die. You have no escape now, Ling Tian. Zhang Gaohan's toxic smoke billowed down from above. Ling Tian looked up in shock. The toxic fumes are like monsters that can devour everything. Ling Tian gritted his teeth, his brows furrowed as he looked up, thinking to himself, this power must be the peak of the martial god realm. Did Zhang Gaohan hide 2 levels of strength? From Zhang Gaohan's side, he raised his hand and laughed triumphantly. Feel my growth over the years, master. As he finished speaking, the toxic gas crashed down upon him like a raging waterfall. This toxic gas spreads higher than the mountains. At Truck Hung Tu's location, he is standing with his arms crossed, observing. Behind him is Mo Dearly. He brings his hand to his chin and thinks to himself, 4th senior brother, for all these years, he's been hiding his true strength, hasn't he? Quickly, go and inform Xinyan Qing and Go Wendio to leave this place immediately. The plan has changed. Mo Dearly kneels down and obeys, yes, master. Suddenly, the disguise disappears. It's Yun and I. She's disguised as Mo Dearly. Yun and I bows her head and earnestly reminds him, master, if you let me pretend to be the master of the heavenly palace, and the old man Ling discovers it, the situation will be dire. Truck Hung Tu speaks, I have my own plans, go. Yun and I responds, yes. He looks down, frowns, and thinks deeply. Trang Chao Han, that name, he's completely disrupted the entire plan that I've been carefully preparing. Now, all we can do is hope for Ling Tian. Don't die on us, alright? Below, Trang Chao Han's poison has spread over a large area. He stands tall, in the poison he created. He looks at the scene in front of him, surprised, thinking, how is that possible? My poison can't reach Ling Tian. Around him, it's like a sphere is blocking all entry of the poison. Trang Chao Han wonders, could it be his strength has increased significantly? On Ling Tian's side, his expression remains calm, but inside he's filled with anxiety. Thankfully, I have the absolute zone. If not, I'd be dust by now. Activating the absolute region will consume a large amount of my spiritual energy. I have to finish him off before the heaven-defying card's counterattack effect wears off. There's still time for one more attack. The system displays a notification, 0 hours, 17 minutes. In the multidimensional space, Ling Tian quickly reaches for a spiritual herb from the system. He takes out a spiritual herb. The next day, he puts it in his mouth. At the same time, he thinks to himself, I'm putting everything on this. Ling Tian raises his fist to attack. He shouts, if I don't succeed, then I'll become a man. Die, Trang Chao Han. His eyes suddenly flashed, filled with surprise. As his fist was about to hit, he quickly stopped. Looking at the dummy in front of him, he thought to himself, a puppet, a fake. This fake contains an extremely dense amount of poison. If I hit it, the consequences will be unpredictable. Within the toxic cloud, Trang Chao Han smiled and said, clever, Ling Tian. Seems like this little trick can't fool you. Ling Tian turned his back, trying to locate him in his mind, thinking, the poison is too thick, I can't pinpoint his location. He continued, your sudden appearance of spiritual energy is truly unexpected, but it seems like it's almost out, isn't it? A system message appeared. The effect of the reverse heaven card has ended. Ling Tian glared with anger. The puppet behind him suddenly moved, and he turned around cautiously. His voice echoed, and more figures appeared behind him. Trang Chao Han continued speaking. There's no escape now. Ling Tian was surrounded by countless puppets. Standing behind the puppets, Trang Chao Han raised his hand and commanded them. Attack! My army of poisonous puppets! Chao Han's poison spread over a large area of the forest. Below, all the trees had died from the poison. On Ling Tian's side, he was surrounded by countless poisonous puppets. He clenched his teeth, his expression anxious, thinking, the situation is unstable. Even if he maintains the absolute domain within a small area, he will gradually lose strength. If he is touched by these poisonous puppets, the consequences would be unimaginable. Standing amidst the smoke, Trang Chao Han laughed triumphantly. Haha, seeing you in such a miserable state, it's so refreshing. Remember back then, when I abandoned my swordsmanship and spent half my life practicing poison techniques, you vehemently opposed me, Ling Tian. Now I completely understand why you did that. Because you knew I had a natural talent for poison techniques. You were afraid I would surpass you, the invincible under heaven. Sadly, I didn't heed your advice. Now it's my turn to teach you a lesson, Ling Tian. As he finished speaking, the puppets all charged towards Ling Tian. There were 4 of them rushing towards him from the front. But that wasn't all. 3 more puppets simultaneously advanced from behind. Ling Tian stood in the middle, surrounded by a crowd of puppets converging on him. They attacked, enveloping his body, creating something like a massive mountain. From the other side, Zhang Gaohan looked at him with a smug smile. Ha ha ha, savor the agonizing pain of the poison slowly consuming your whole body. Suddenly, purple light emanated from Ling Tian's core within the crowd of puppets. Zhang Gaohan looked at him with an expression of utter shock. The light source was growing stronger, pushing away all the puppets around him. They were all split in 2, flying in all directions. The powerful spiritual energy forced Zhang Gaohan to raise his hand in front of his face to shield himself. As he shielded his face, he thought to himself, such a powerful attack. How can he have such strong spiritual energy? His body was surrounded by an incredibly intense surge of spiritual energy, as if it could blow everything away at any moment. Ling Tian's face darkened, and he sighed. Haze. Zhang Gaohan, who was shielding himself, looked up with a puzzled expression. Haze. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock. A massive surge of spiritual energy was barreling towards him. It swept across the desolate grassland, splitting in 2 as it passed. He braced himself, his hand outstretched, struggling to stay grounded and avoid being blown away. Trang Chao Han gritted his teeth, enduring the immense pressure. He thought to himself, this power is even stronger than before. My insides are about to burst. Suddenly, Ling Tian shouted. 3. Hearing his voice, his eyes widened in shock. The surge of spiritual energy from behind surged towards him, attacking. With this impact, it became even harder for him to hold his ground. Finally, unable to resist, he was quickly blown out of the car by the wind. Trang Chao Han was flung upwards. He was ejected from his own controlled body, soaring into the sky. When he could fly no higher, Trang Chao Han quickly fell from the air. In a brief moment, he was returned to the ground. A loud noise followed. As he fell, smoke billowed up from the ground. The system displayed a notification. The Provoke the Heroes card ended its effect. He looked at him, thinking to himself, thankfully it was on sale before, so he was able to buy this prop card. The system appeared. Provoke the Heroes. High grade, trial version. After using this prop, within 3 minutes of release, 3 times the strength, each time stronger than the last, could cause those at the early stage of Martial Emperor and below to fall into a coma on the spot, causing those at the mid-stage of Martial Emperor and above to be shocked, their bodies stiffening for up to a dozen seconds. Exchange points, 500 points. A stream of fresh blood flowed onto the ground. It was Zhang Gaohan. he tried to get up, clutching his chest. He vomited blood continuously. When he stabilized himself, he gritted his teeth, raised his head and asked, "What was that barrage of attacks?" "I've never seen such a technique before." Ling Tian stood opposite him and replied, "The techniques this lord has mastered in his lifetime are countless. How could you possibly know them all?" Suddenly he burst into loud laughter. Ha ha ha. His body seemed to be revived. His face now looked more alive, completely different from his previous clueless appearance. "So let's see, before you run out of techniques, can you kill me?" A jar suddenly appeared above his head. A green liquid poured down from the jar onto his head. The substance radiating from the jar seemed like an extremely important tool, helping him recover his spiritual energy. After finishing, Trang Chao Han smiled with hidden meaning. "Take your time and enjoy it. This is the technique I have been diligently practicing after leaving you." Ling Tian stood across from him, surprised. He frowned, clenched his teeth, his expression extremely tense. At the same time, he held a badge in his hand, thinking to himself, "This guy's spiritual energy is recovering quickly. Don't give him a chance to recover." Without hesitation, he squeezed the badge hard. An extremely intense source of spiritual energy emanated from his body. Ling Tian looked at him with indignation, his expression full of determination, silently promising himself the ultimate counter-attacking card. "This time, I must kill him." Trang Chao Han was no pushover either. He smiled at him and asked, "Still so strong with spiritual energy? No wonder he was once the undefeated champion of the world. Let's see what challenge he throws down." Then they both charged forward at the same time. Ling Tian and Trang Chao Han simultaneously take off and leap forward. They meet, equally matched and strong, in a head-on collision. Trang Chao Han raises his sword and swings it powerfully towards him, his expression arrogant. At the same time, Ling Tian is not to be outdone. He quickly draws his own sword and strikes towards him. Both of them roar at the same time. Who is the stronger? They thrust their fists forward, launching a direct attack on each other. Their hands get closer and closer. Two immense sources of spiritual energy clash head-on from both sides. This attack created a significant collision. After the impact, their spiritual energy exploded like a bomb, then rose high. The impact was so strong that Zhang Gao Han was pushed far away. On the opposite side, Lang Tian was no exception. After the collision, he quickly slid across the ground. Not only that, the impact created a huge crater like an arena. Both sides continued to charge directly at each other. In the middle of them, their spiritual energies clashed with equal force. Zhang Gao Han gritted his teeth, using all his strength to attack. On Ling Tian's side, he unleashed his full spiritual power, delivering a final blow. Meanwhile, from afar, Truck Hung Tu watched them fight, his gaze fixed on the clash. He marveled silently. A terrifying confrontation, no wasted movements, a pure contest of spiritual power. I asked my brothers to help me lure Trang Chao Han to Tuet Tin Mountain, hoping Ling Tian would get rid of him. I never expected it to escalate like this. Ling Tian's strength is even greater than his peak form, exceeding my expectations. But the most unexpected thing is that Trang Chao Han can actually match Ling Tian in strength. All these years, he has been hiding his peak martial god strength. Add to that the blood demon furnace, which can replenish spiritual power. All these years, he has been hiding his peak martial god strength. Add to that the blood demon furnace, which can replenish spiritual power. If we don't eliminate him this time, there will be great trouble later. Let's return to Ling Tian and Trang Chao Han. They are still locked in a stalemate, either willing to yield. Both simultaneously land on the ground, their eyes locking on each other. The surrounding air is thick with swirling dust. The system appears. He looks at the system notification, his expression contorted with worry. He thinks to himself, damn it, the power of the divine card can't defeat him. I have to find another way in the remaining time. Amidst the swirling dust, he raises his head and looks at Ling Tian with cold eyes. You are tougher than I thought, Ling Tian. But I doubt you can hold on for much longer. If my guess is right, you only have 2 minutes left. He raises his hand as a gesture. Ling Tian is startled by his words, which hit him right in the heart. His eyes are wide with surprise as he looks back at him, wondering, how does he know I only have 2 minutes left? Does he know about the system? Seeing Ling Tian's surprise, Trang Chao Han smiles and says, surprised aren't you? About the secret of your power. I knew it. In the silent space, Ling Tian and Trang Chao Han stood facing each other. He touched his chin, his expression thoughtful. The secret of your power source, I know it all. On your side, you were extremely worried when you realized he had guessed about the system's existence. You thought to yourself, impossible. Only I should know about the system's existence. Seeing your tense expression, he pondered and deduced, your Dantian's spiritual energy is clearly only at the level of a warrior general, yet you can use such powerful techniques. Besides, every attack unleashes full force. A seasoned veteran who has fought countless battles wouldn't use spiritual energy so recklessly. There's only one possibility. You have unlimited spiritual energy. It's like my bloodthirsty demon furnace. It can draw spiritual energy from the surroundings and continuously supply it to me. You also have some kind of divine weapon that can supply you with spiritual energy, right? Every time before you unleash your power, you make a hand gesture as if you're crushing something. I think that's the condition to activate that divine weapon of yours, isn't it? He was impressed by his keen observation. Such sharp eyes, he thought to himself. Trang Chao Han continued. Your spiritual energy bursts forth and lasts for exactly 5 minutes, then it suddenly disappears. So you can't use it indefinitely, right? Ling Tian. He was speechless after hearing that. Trang Chao Han went on. As for the time, I'm very sensitive to that. After all, even a little more or less will affect the final outcome of live body refining. As soon as he heard about his method of cultivating poison, Ling Tian's eyes filled with rage and his expression became murderous. He muttered to himself. Cultivating poison with living beings. Seeing his reaction, Trang Chao Han bowed his head and smiled maliciously. 1 minute is left before the effect of your spiritual power fades. You're not taking advantage of this precious time to attack. It seems you know that you cannot defeat me with that power alone. In consideration of the past, I can be merciful. You just need to hand over that divine artifact. This is a fair deal, right? I guarantee that I won't attack your master from today onwards. Moreover, I will return to Absolute Love Mountain and stand side by side with your master like truck. Hearing his proposal, his eyes turned colder. Ling Tian repeated Trang Chao Han's words. Stand side by side? Indeed, I need someone to stay at Absolute Love Mountain. He raised his hand, his expression resolute. For the sake of the people, today I will kill you here at Absolute Love Mountain. Facing his stance, Trang Chao Han smirked scornfully. For the sake of the people? Ha! I think you'll be lucky to save your own life. If you don't want the wine, you'll have to drink the penalty. As he spoke, Trang Chao Han extended his hand, gathering energy in his palm. So, with your spiritual weapon, and more than that, that toxic energy has also surrounded his eyes. After a while, Trang Chao Han's body was equipped with an additional layer of armor, formed from the toxin. He looked at you, his appearance extremely arrogant, and then said, let's go to hell. Ling Tian looked towards him, his eyes filled with surprise, muttering to himself, his spiritual power can still continue to increase. Suddenly, he appeared behind you, smiling and asking, where are you looking, Ling Tian? Ling Tian was startled and turned his head back. But because he wasn't prepared, he quickly got hit by his attack, sending his entire body flying backward. Ling Tian reached out his hand to block in front of his face, trying to stop his opponent's force, causing him to slide across the ground. In his mind, he silently thought, the power is much stronger. While he was sliding across the ground, unexpectedly he appeared from behind and rushed towards you. Trang Chao Han raised his fist, striking towards him, his voice tight. I'm right here. Ling Tian turned his head, quickly reacting by raising his hand to block Trang Chao Han's attack. He smiled, his expression filled with excitement as he spoke in a mocking, seemingly reminding tone, fast reaction, Ling Tian. However, your spiritual power burst will only last for 3 more seconds. Then, as if fueled by this, Trang Chao Han attacked him with all his spiritual power. He started counting down, 3, 2, 1. As his words ended, the system notification appeared, the effect of the reverse heaven counter card ended. Trang Chao Han put his hand behind his back, smiling victoriously. Now is your time to die. Go to hell. Then, he launched a punch infused with immense spiritual energy towards Ling Tian's face. As he attacked, he yelled Ling Tian's name. Suddenly, Trang Chao Han's attack was blocked by Ling Tian's hand. The spiritual energy radiating from his body vanished completely. He looked up at Ling Tian, his face filled with astonishment. How is this possible? He blocked it. Ling Tian's pupils glowed, and the spiritual energy from Trang Chao Han's body continuously flowed into him. Your spiritual energy is truly amazing. Seeing his own spiritual energy being absorbed, Trang Chao Han panicked and shouted, you're sucking my spiritual energy. Stop it, Ling Tian spoke in a deep voice. Charging complete. Simultaneously, the system announced. 09 minutes 13 seconds. His eyes flashed with intense killing intent. To get revenge, Ling Tian threw a powerful punch at his chin, roaring, I'll send you to your doom. The impact was so strong that his face turned pale, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Ling Tian struck even harder, rendering him helpless and sending him flying into the air. Zhuang Gaohan was knocked high into the air. As he fell, he couldn't believe what had just happened, thinking to himself. His spiritual power burst state had clearly disappeared. Why could he still attack me with full force? His eyes widened in shock. It was Ling Tian, who didn't stop there. He charged forward, gathering spiritual power in his palm, ready to attack the man destined for hell. It's you who deserves to go to hell. Without hesitation, he launched his attack. Zhuang Gaohan was swiftly knocked back. He fell to the ground a distance away, raising a cloud of dust and a thunderous roar. Below the forest, through the hazy dust, Trang Chao Han's figure gradually emerged. He frowned, lying motionless on the ground. A moment later, Trang Chao Han struggled to get up, his hands trembling. Damn it. For 100 years, No one has ever beaten me this badly. I will kill you. Looking at him approaching calmly, he called out his name, Ling Tian. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, his expression extremely cold as he asked, "You're relying on yourself now?" Trang Chao-han laughed loudly at him. Ha 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 ha. As expected, you're getting old, Ling Tian. Don't forget I have an endless source of spiritual power. He spread his arms, starting to gather energy from the surroundings. The divine weapon was hovering above his head. He looked incredibly smug, lifting his face to receive the spiritual power from the divine weapon. These injuries will heal in an instant. This time I'll repay you 100-fold. A blue liquid was flowing from the bottle. Suddenly it stopped, frozen like it was encased in ice, before Trang Chao-han's shocked expression. He exclaimed, Why is this happening?" He strode forward, his voice rising as he asked back, "Didn't you want to know the secret of my strength? Take a good look." He quickly raised his hand, controlling it. "Under your control, Trang Chao-han flew towards you." His eyes widened in disbelief, his mind churning with thoughts, his body uncontrollable. As he flew toward Lang Tian, you reached out and grabbed him by the throat. Trang Chao-han's eyes bulged, his body trembling uncontrollably as he struggled to utter, "How?" Lang Tian stared at him, his eyes filled with rage. "This is my power." Lang Tian held Trang Chao-han's neck tight. He looked at him, his face a mask of deep anger, and growled, "I'll let you experience my power firsthand." The force of your grip was relentless, sending shivers down Trang Chao-han's spine. Surprisingly, he released his hand from the man's neck. The man's eyes widened in shock. Finding himself suspended in midair, he exclaimed in astonishment, "My body is floating in the air. The power to manipulate space. Could it be that you have reached the realm of a martial immortal?" Ling Tian raised his hand, pointing it towards the ground. Trang Chao-han was pulled down with him, kneeling on the ground. Ling Tian's eyes were dark, his expression filled with fierce killing intent, as he asked, "You wretched creature, do you know your crime?" Trang Chao-han quickly replied, "Your disciple knows his crime. Your disciple was wrong. You shouldn't have betrayed me then, and you shouldn't have attacked me today. You are a traitor. I beg for your forgiveness." Ling Tian repeated his words, "Forgiveness? You know your crime is unforgivable, yet you still beg for mercy." Seeing this, Trang Chao-han lifted his head and tremblingly pleaded, "Master, I beg you to spare my life. You can do with me as you please." He raised his hand to his chin and contemplated, "Do with you as I please? You said it yourself." His body suddenly emitted a powerful aura of killing intent, holding his divine weapon. He narrowed his eyes and pronounced his punishment. "I will strip you of your cultivation and destroy the dark blood demonic flame furnace." His reflection showed his expression of utter astonishment. Trang Chao-han roared, vehemently protesting, "Master, that is the same as taking my life. I cannot accept it." Despite this, he could not sway his decision in the slightest. His expression darkened, and he asked, "Cannot accept it? Do you think I am negotiating with you?" As soon as he finished speaking, he quickly used his spiritual power to break his divine weapon. Trang Chao-han, on the opposite side, fearfully pleaded, "Master, stop!" At this time, the dark blood heavenly demon furnace began to crack. Seeing his divine weapon about to be destroyed, his anger rose, and he furiously shouted, "Hey, stop! That's my lifeline!" Ling Tian remained unmoved, ruthlessly crushing the dark blood heavenly demon furnace. His eyes widened, his expression full of shock. His divine weapon shattered into pieces, falling to the ground. Trang Chao-han knelt below, watching his divine weapon destroyed, his body trembling uncontrollably, his anger boiling. His hand, which was braced against the ground, trembled uncontrollably. Zhang Gaohan rose to his feet, his eyes wide with hatred, staring at him. "You bastard, I'm going to kill you. I absolutely have to kill you. I'm going to use you to practice my poison. I'm going to make you wish you were dead." Within the system's interface, a notification popped up, Zhang Gaohan's loyalty, fluctuating wildly. His loyalty was plummeting. In a flash, it had dropped over 80 points. It only stopped at -95%. Looking at his loyalty, his eyes lifted, his expression filled with utter shock. His face turned dark. Ling Tian gathered energy in his finger. "This cruel beast is truly stubborn and blind. For the sake of the people, today, I will strip you of your cultivation," he declared, quickly channeling his spiritual energy toward the other man. His spiritual energy penetrated Trang Chao-han's dantian. Trang Chao-han could feel his dantian constantly expanding, like a balloon being continuously inflated. As the spiritual energy within his dantian expanded to its maximum, a blue light flashed deep within his body. His dantian exploded. Trang Chao-han cried out in agony. His scream wasn't just from the pain, but because with the explosion of his dantian, he knew that his cultivation, which he had risked his life to cultivate for hundreds of years, was gone. The spiritual energy within his body began to diminish. This means that Trang Chao-han, a peerless expert, is now nothing more than a cripple. For Trang Chao-han, who feared nothing in his pursuit of strength, who endured countless hardships to achieve what he has today, there's nothing more cruel than having his cultivation destroyed. After destroying his Dantian, Ling Tian turned and left. From this day forward, there is no Trang Chao Han in this world. Go! Trang Chao Han trembled, struggling to get up. He called out to stop him. You can't leave! I must kill you! I must kill you! Suddenly, his body turned demonic, charging at him from behind. A loud crash echoed. Ling Tian turned around, looking back. Before him, he saw Truck Hung Tu sitting on top of Trang Chao Han, holding him down. Master, I'm late. Lying on the ground, he twisted his head up and struggled. Let me go. You traitor. I have to kill that old man. Seeing his reaction, Truck Hung Tu said with a cold face, Fourth brother, don't you understand? This is the greatest kindness Master can give you. As soon as he finished speaking, he burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. He laughed like that, but tears streamed down his gaunt cheeks. Ling Tian turned his head, and then he commanded Truck Hung Tu, leave that man to you. He bowed and obeyed. I will take care of this, Master. Please take your time. The system appears. System notification. Main mission completed. Congratulations, host, for successfully completing the main mission of cleaning up the sect and rebuilding the foundation. Reward exchange points. 5,000 points. Virtue is paramount in life. Everything has its own fate. Host handled this matter appropriately. Additional exchange points reward. 1,800 points. He looked at the system's notification panel and thought to himself, the exchange points this time are pretty generous, but I've also spent a lot. Dealing with that Zhang Gao Han consumed so many prop cards. If I really encountered the encirclement of those villains, I'd be